Welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast with Trey and Lee, our bi-weekly podcast that we come to you with marriage tips and thoughts and ideas. We're glad you've joined us today.
We are. It's been a good couple of weeks for us, kind of some busy weeks, but we like busy.
That's right. We've done a workshop in Border, Texas, and if you were there, we appreciate you coming. It was a packed house. We thought that was a pretty good turnout for a small community. They did a good job promoting.
That's right. And we have our next one is coming up in
Idabel,
Oklahoma. I was about to say the wrong place. Idabel, Oklahoma. Another kind of small community, but we already have a great
about 50 couples signed up already.
A great crowd registered for a small place. So if you're close to that area, if you don't know where that is, look it up. You might be close to it.
That's right. We have couples coming in from Arkansas, from Texas, from Missouri, about 5 states right now that have registered that we're excited about. And then we dropped some big news about a week ago that we will be doing our second marriage cruise this January. We are excited about this. Those who went last year had a blast, and we are excited about doing it again. Right now, we were doing a little bit of figuring. For about $100 a day, you can go on this cruise. It's about, if you do an interior room and go with the cheapest possible options, for about $1,200 for you and your spouse both. Not each, but both. About $600 or a little less, actually.
I think we figured anywhere from $100 to $140 a day, depending on what room you choose, of course. But yeah, I mean, the price is pretty great for 5 nights at sea. We'll stop at a couple of different ports where you can get off and have fun, or you can stay on the boat and relax. But the food was really good last time. We had some good food. We did some fun things. And we're going to talk about some of the fun things that we tried
here in a little
bit.
We do, in case you're listening, you're thinking about this and you're going, cruise, well, what if, are we just going to go to classes all day? We only do that on days when we're at sea.
Right, we're at sea for 2 full days. So I believe like Tuesday and Thursday are at sea days. I don't know. I'm not sure.
And you have about 2 hours worth of classes that you are 2 or 3 hours.
I think from 9 to 12 we have like a conference center that they give us there on the ship, and we have breaks in there in between sessions.
You are not obligated to go.
You're not even obligated to come. Yeah. If you come to the first one and you go, this isn't what we thought it was going to be, then you just go play and have fun. We don't even care.
That's it. So, but we think you'll come back because we think the material's good.
Last year, we didn't have a ton of classes, and last year we even had some couples say we wanted more marriage classes than this, but we want you to have fun on this trip and not just sit in classes. We want you to spend time together as a couple.
So let me tell you about 4 things that we did right in marriage that we look back now and we go, this really was a game changer for us. Not anything we specifically said, we need to do this or our marriage is in trouble. They were kind of accidental things that we just started doing. We look back now and go, that made a huge difference in the success of our marriage. One was we kind of started having we call it coffee time. If you've been to our workshops, you understand that. But we had a daily set time that we sat down for 15 to 30 minutes a day and talked. That was good for us. We attended workshops together. Anytime, any church, anybody offered a marriage or family workshop, we were there. If it was a Bible study, Bible class, somebody was showing film strips, we showed up and it was there. At one of those workshops, we had a speaker who, a third thing that we did that encouraged us, said you should be reading at least 1, maybe 2 marriage books a year as a couple. And my first thought was, I don't want to read out loud to my wife, but that wasn't what he was talking about. His thoughts were, you read a chapter and then get your wife to read a chapter, look at what you've underlined, each other's underlined, and talk about anything you've underlined. We started doing this, and that was a huge blessing because it educated us on how to do marriage and on one another.
It's the workshops and the books that we've read throughout the years have been kind of like continuing education courses that are required for a lot of the medical field is required to have continuing education courses. I don't know who all, but it's a good thing. It's a healthy thing. You've got to keep up and just remind yourself so that you can stay on course.
The 4th thing that we did I'm going to let you introduce, and this is where we're going today, that we look back now and go, that was a blessing. It was not an easy thing to do, but we did it, and we're going to talk about it today. What is it?
Yeah, we went on getaways. We did. We had pretty tight budget back in those days, and that's something that we're also going to address.
Because you actually was a stay-at-home mama. We actually said, we'll take less for you to stay home and do less, but it took saving every nickel and dime and penny to have a getaway.
That's right. We just talked about that with our kids this past weekend, that we raised 4 kids. We did not have a lot of extra money to spare. Our kids never felt like they went without, but we lived paycheck to paycheck for a lot of years. We really did. But we still managed to figure out how to go on a marriage getaway every once in a while.
Yeah, that is exactly right. And we're not talking, we did family vacations, but we're talking marriage getaways. Sometimes, most of the time when we had a getaway, it might just be an overnight. Mm-hmm. We're going to leave our kids with Lee's sister. Mm-hmm. But there were times in there also where we planned 2 or 3 days of being gone. And it was tough. It was hard. Sometimes we felt bad about leaving kids, but it was actually, we found out, good for our kids. So let's talk a little bit about marriage vacations, marriage getaways, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I mean, when I first read the word, we always call it a getaway. We saw where some people call them a marriage vacation, and my first thought was they want a vacation from their marriage, away from their marriage, and that's not what we're trying to promote here, because of course we want you to spend time together and grow stronger together on this getaway. But I also remembered that a lot of countries call they use the word holiday in place of vacation, mm-hmm. which I love. We're having a marriage holiday. That denotes that we're celebrating something, which is what you're going to do on a getaway. You're going to celebrate your marriage. So I love that. I love calling it a holiday.
I do too. A getaway is kind of like a date on steroids. Dates are healthy for our marriage.
Yes. And
this is like an extended date. This is we're going to get away. We're going to be husband and wife again, not mom and dad again. And it is like a date on steroids. And mm-hmm. it is so healthy and so good for our marriage.
Yeah. It's just so important to get away without your kids. Family vacations are also important because you're building memories. Kiddos remember those kinds of things, but this is without the kids. And it's specifically to deepen your relationship, to strengthen your friendship, and to grow your intimacy. And it's just like you said. I mean, it's like a date on steroids. You're totally focused on one another with no distractions, and the sole purpose is just to reconnect in all of those ways.
Yeah. And before you're thinking to yourself, we can't afford that. Hold on. Again, mm-hmm. we're going to talk about this. We get frustrated. I get really frustrated anytime we post something on social media that says something about going on dates. And the first thing somebody says was, well, we're not made of money. We're going to talk a little bit about that because sometimes it is requiring money, but sometimes a little bit here, there, and yonder. Sometimes it's choosing not to go to Starbucks and buy a $4 coffee. Sometimes it's as simple as just saving a little bit of funds here, there, and yonder. We'll talk about it as we go. But we know that we all try to prioritize our marriage by putting our kids to bed early, I'd like to think, and having some couple time. But we really, really need, on occasion, we think it's good once or twice a year, at least once if you can, to have a marriage getaway that's important. And we're going to talk about 2 or 3 reasons why that's important.
Yeah. And just address this really quickly. Some people balk at the idea of going on trips without their kids because they feel too guilty. It's like, we're not going to leave our kids. We feel guilty about that. We want to take our kids with us, whatever. But we just want to address that it's so important to have time without your kids. Do you just want to be parents together, or do you want to have a fulfilling and foundational marriage to build your family on? Mm-hmm. Because
if you're not doing we say this so many times, if you're not doing any marriage stuff while you're raising your kids, you're going to have empty nest someday, and you're probably going to have a very empty marriage because you've put all of your focus and all of your time in on your kids.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that coming down here too. On our third point, we're going to discuss how kids work into this picture of getaways.
So kick us off on some reasons why this is important.
Yes, so busyness. Man, it has weakened the priority of marriage, really. Busyness in our lives just takes over everything. We let the urgent push the important to the back seat a lot of times. Our lives are crammed full of work and parenting activities and sports and all, even hobbies, even sometimes our hobbies that we think are important. All that good stuff can wreak havoc on our most important relationship, and that is our marriage. Because as you said, of course we love our children. Our relationship with our children is important, but one of these days our children are going to leave home, and we have to still live with this person that we've said I do to for many, many years after the kids leave home. So beyond our relationship with God, our relationship with our spouse is the most important.
Yeah, and we have got to give marriage some priority, and a getaway occasionally is a very healthy thing.
It is. It just offers you the time and attention to reprioritize your marriage. It focus time away from home and work and all of those responsibilities. It just allows you to deepen your connection rather than just superficially dealing with the regular day-to-day routine issues of life, which you have to do. In the everyday world, you got to pay the bills. You got to cook dinner. You got to load the dishwasher. You got to fix lunches, all of those things. But sometimes just the mundane takes over the important. And so these getaways, they allow you to reconnect sexually, emotionally, physically, and conversationally. And all of those things are so, so very important. So tell us another reason.
Because another reason is because you've gotten a little bored or maybe a little too comfortable in marriage, and that's very common.
Easy. That's very easy to do.
Life gets in the way of marriage, which is paying bills, going to work, hobbies, raising kids, little league. Those are all things that just make us a little comfortable in marriage, and it's too easy to get lazy and take one another for granted. And marriage getaways give you a chance to reconnect with each other, to try some new places, some new food, some new things. You can spend time together, and it will increase your fun and your friendship, because friendship is what marriage is built on.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever heard of a couple who went on a getaway weekend with their spouse for a day or two or more or whatever it is and came back and said, boy, that was miserable. I wish we'd have brought our kids. It's just one of those things that really is a blessing. It helps build new common interests and memories. Last year, our cruise that we did, we spent a lot of time together. We played shuffleboard. We did some fun stuff together we had never tried. We ate some food we had never tried. We jumped in a taxi in Mexico and took off across some little town and found a restaurant that we'd read about online that was fantastic. We got $20 massages laying under what was that tree? A palm tree, a coconut tree, or something on the beach. It was absolutely fantastic. And these are just things that we could not experience some of our best memories that we talk about are times where we had little getaways together. And those are just so important. You're building up toward that someday when you are empty nesters and you have you're no longer, you don't feel bored or too comfortable because, boy, you've been doing these little things and you can't wait to do them all the time now.
Right.
It's a healthy thing.
Yeah. So, trying those new things, it builds the new common interests that are so important because, like we've mentioned several times in several different podcast episodes, we talk about common interests are so important to keep conversation alive, to keep your friendship alive, because when the kids do leave home, you're going to be like, well, what do we do now? A lot of times you just build all of your activities around your kids, around going to their sporting events or whatever it is. And when they leave, it's like, we got to have some things to do together. And so when you're trying these new things on your getaways, it's like, man, we can't wait to go ziplining or snorkeling again, or whatever it is. We tried Top Golf the other day. We mentioned that, but I think that's something that we'll want to do again. We on our last cruise last year, we one of the little excursions that was offered was called Salsa and Salsa, and so they taught us how to make 2 or 3 different kinds of salsa with fresh ingredients. It made it a lot of fun. We got to eat all of the things that we made, and then we learned how to do the salsa dance, which we neither one dance hardly ever, and we weren't very good at it, but we had fun, and we laughed. We laughed at each other. We laughed with each other, and it's just fun. And so now, if we decide we want to have an at-home date night, we might, make some of those salsas that we made and
salsa.
Move some furniture out of the way a little bit where we can salsa.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah. One of the things that we want you to catch and to understand that kind of leads into the next point is that we're not telling you to neglect your children.
No.
We're not telling you to put your kids on the back burner. The problem is it's our natural tendency to neglect our marriage. That's the common thing, is we tend to be people who neglect it and focus on everything else in this world, and that's what we don't want to do.
Right. And you don't even realize that you are neglecting your marriage. But if you go, years on end without having any kind of getaway or putting, some extra attention on your marriage, it just happens. It sneaks in there where you realize, oh, we've got some work to do. So this just keeps you from getting to that point when you go on these regular getaways.
Yeah. So let's look at this last point, number 3, which is you need a getaway because your kids want your marriage to succeed.
Wow.
And this is huge.
They absolutely want your marriage to succeed.
Yeah, because here we are talking about leaving your kiddos, and we felt guilty at times doing things like that, yet your kids want your marriage to succeed. The number one fear of children today is their kids getting into, or their parents getting a divorce, that something's going to happen to their mom or dad, because they see that at school all the time. They go to school and somebody goes, I hadn't seen my dad in 2 years, or I live with my grandparents. So their number one fear is that your marriage will not succeed. And when your children see that you're investing time and energy and money, when they see you being affectionate, when they see you going on dates together, they're not only encouraged, but man, there's security in that. They're getting the message that marriage is important and that their mom and dad are good and their family is good. And that is something that they need to understand. They need to understand in their future marriage what it looks like. And so it's important to you want them to grow up and have a healthy marriage. And so they need to see from you, hey, we're investing in our marriage, and we're taking getaways, and we're spending time going on dates, and we're going for walks, and we're holding hands, and we're listening to podcasts, and we're reading marriage books, whatever it is, because that's their biggest fear. And it's healthy for them to see that in your marriage.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the nitty-gritty. Let's talk about the practical. Let's talk about how we can make this happen as far as money goes or whatever. So while we would love nothing more than for you to go on our marriage cruise with us, we do realize that that's not in some people's budgets. There was a time when that kind of trip was not in our budget. And Trey mentioned my sister lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. She had a pool. She loved our kids. Our kids loved her.
They saw her as a grandmother.
Yes, and we would go spend time with her, and the boys just thought that was great fun. They were well entertained and well cared for. And then we would drive 20 minutes down the road and get a hotel and maybe go to dinner, do some shopping, go to a movie, whatever. I mean, we just took a night and part of the next day
for it to be
just for us without the kids. And that was that still cost a little bit of money, but it wasn't that was what we could afford at the time.
Yeah. So we didn't ask her to come in. We brought our kids to her.
Right. Yes. So if that's what you need to do, you even mentioned maybe you just can't go anywhere. Maybe you can't afford gas money, whatever it is. Maybe you hit some friends up and say, hey, can our kids just come over for a sleepover, and you have an at-home date. You just have your house to yourself without kids. Now, I will tell you this. You need to put away the electronics. You need to, don't let the laundry, you ignore all of those things. All of the household responsibilities do not exist if you have an at-home date. And that's hard sometimes. Yeah. That's why getaways are important, is because you can leave all of those things that you feel like need to get done, you can leave those behind. So
don't go home and clean house.
No, do
go
not.
Home and have supper together at the table.
Spend time with each other. So, but if that's the kind, if that's what you can afford right now, that's what you make happen. But we also want to address that, sometimes we splurge on things on a regular basis that really, really add up, and we don't really realize how much money we're spending on, like Trey mentioned, a $5 cup of coffee every day. If you stop off somewhere and get, a cup of coffee, or if you're a Coke drinker, whatever it is, you're easily spending, if you do this 5 days a week, before work, after work, whatever, that's easily $25 a week, which is $100 a month, which is over $1,000 a year. You can go on a getaway for $1,000 a year if you just say, you know what, I'm going to fix a cup of coffee at home and take it with me to work. Yeah. Or, take my Coke with me to work or whatever, instead of stopping off and spending the money for it. If you just vow to do that for a year so that you can afford your vacation, whatever it takes.
Another option is eating out, which is very expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And both of you may work outside the home, and that may be very tough. There may be nights where you just go, look, we need Chick-fil-A. I cannot cook. But even if you had, just say you ate out 3 times a week, or you bought food and brought it home 3 times a week, and you said, all right, we're only going to do this 1 time a week. And you did something just to cut back on that, to where you start saving some money not eating out, that you could cook at home or something along those lines.
And that just takes a little bit more planning. It really does. Meal plan at the beginning of the week, buy your groceries at the beginning of the week so that you know what you're going to fix and you've already got the groceries. Make sure they're like easy, quick meals. They're out there. Get on Pinterest and look up, quick, easy meals, inexpensive meals that you can have at home, and figure those all out at the beginning of the week so that you're not tempted to go eat out.
Yep.
Hey, I've got a meal that's going to take me 10 minutes to cook in there in the kitchen. I've already got the food for it. It's going to take, it would take just as much time to go drive through a drive up as it would to go in there and brown the hamburger meat and throw it in a tortilla, whatever it is.
One thing we heard a couple did one time was anytime they paid cash for something and got change back, if part of their change included a $5 bill, they stuck that in a bottle or a jar. And it was just kind of like, hey, I got a $5 bill, that goes in the jar. And that was their getaway jar. And they said in about 6 months, that really had added up by taking little $5 bills here, there, and yonder when they had a $5 bill. And they use that for a getaway. So there's so many options that you can do, but it's going to require a little effort on your part.
Yes, some effort, some discipline.
We don't care. We would love for you to go on a cruise with us. But that's not what this podcast is about. This podcast is about you finding some time to have a getaway with your spouse, whether that's a cruise in January or whether that's just a night away around Christmas to go to a concert. Just something that is so healthy for your marriage when you're able to do that.
Yes, and on a regular basis. And we're talking, when we say regular basis, we're talking really at least once a year. It's so very healthy to do this at least once a year.
Yeah. I really don't remember big anniversaries. We did some of those. On our 10th anniversary, we went to Cancun and had saved and saved and saved and saved and saved and saved.
We actually, they had a little plan where we could pay it out. Like we booked the trip, and it was like pay so much every month or whatever. And so, if that's an option and you have to pay it out, pay it out. It didn't cost any interest. We don't ever encourage you paying more for something than you should. But
sure.
But the travel agent that we went through allowed us to pay that out.
So look for options like that. But we want to encourage you, sit down with your spouse, grab a calendar, and try to plan a getaway, a time for just you two to go and spend some time together. Try to do it just you two, not you and another couple, not you and 2 or 3 other couples, just you as a couple. That is so healthy. Because if you go with another couple, you're going to spend time, the guys are going to hang out and the girls are going to hang out. And it's just so much better if you can reconnect Man, Getaways, we have found, they reconnect us. Lee mentioned them a while ago. Sexually, emotionally, conversationally, physically. We just come home filled up. Our marriage is kind of like, it's like,
Yes.
wow, I forgot what it was like to be married when we had kids.
It strengthens our friendship above and beyond everything else. And that is the goal for marriage, is to be best friends.
That's it.
Yes.
We're done for the day.
Wow. That went quick.
Yeah. If you get a chance, you want to know more about a cruise, treyandlee.com is where it's at. You want to know about upcoming events, treyandlee.com. Want to know more about our books, treyandlee.com. Everything you need is TREYANDLEA.com. Come see us some weekend for a marriage getaway weekend, for a marriage workshop. Come, leave the kids with someone and come go to a marriage workshop with us.
We are going to be, we haven't mentioned this in a while, we are going to be up in Massachusetts in October.
That's a big deal to us,
And
because
so
we don't ever get up in that area.
We don't get in that area very often. If you live up in that area, man, even if you're 2 or 3 hours away from where we're going to be, I would just strongly urge you, make that your getaway.
That's it.
Yeah, a few days in the beautiful area of watch the fall leaves and all of that kind of thing.
Excited about
yes, come see us.
Y'all have a great week. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.